Doctor mistakenly injects millionaire's sperm into a poor black virgin, and their lives change forever. Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you're watching from today. The morning sun shone bright over New York City as Ethan Thompson stepped out of his penthouse elevator. At 32, he had everything a man could want. His technology company was worth billions. He was about to marry the beautiful Olivia Rothschild, and life couldn't be better. "Good morning, Mr. Thompson," said Maria, the cleaning lady, as she pushed her cart past him. He barely noticed her, too busy checking the stock prices on his phone. "Big day coming up, sir?" she asked with a kind smile. "The biggest," he replied without looking up. "Getting married this Saturday." In his office, Ethan's brother Alexander was waiting with a stack of papers. "Little brother, we need to talk about the company merger before your wedding." "Can't it wait, Alex? I've got wedding details to handle." Alexander's face darkened. "You know, if you focused more on business and less on that socialite fiancé of yours, maybe the board wouldn't be so nervous." "What's that supposed to mean?" Ethan snapped. "It means Olivia Rothschild cares more about getting her picture in magazines than being your wife. Everyone can see it except you." Ethan slammed his hand on the desk. "You're just jealous because your own marriage failed. Fine, don't listen. But when everything falls apart, don't say I didn't warn you." At the wedding venue, Olivia was directing the decorators with military precision. "No, no, no, I said white roses, not cream. This is going to be the society wedding of the year. Everything has to be perfect." Her assistant, Jenny, ran up with a phone. "Miss Rothschild, People magazine wants to know what designer you're wearing." Olivia's eyes lit up. "Tell them it's a custom Vera Wang. Make sure they mention the price tag." She turned to her friend Rebecca. "Can you believe it? In 2 days I'll be Mrs. Ethan Thompson. Do you know what that means?" "That you're marrying the man you love?" Rebecca asked. Olivia laughed. "It means I'll never have to worry about money again. Plus, being married to one of New York's most eligible bachelors will do wonders for my social media following." Back at his office, Ethan stared at a photo of him and Olivia. Something felt off. The merger papers his brother brought sat unopened on his desk. His phone buzzed with another text from Olivia about the wedding. "Mr. Thompson." It was Maria again, coming to empty his trash. "Sometimes when my heart is troubled, I find it helps to take a drive. Clear the head, you know." This time Ethan actually looked at her. She had kind eyes. "Maybe you're right," he said, grabbing his car keys. The winding road along the coast had always been his thinking spot. As he drove his Ferrari, questions swirled in his mind. Was he making a mistake? Did Olivia really love him? What was his brother trying to warn him about? He was so lost in thought that he didn't see the dog until it was too late. Swerving to avoid it, his car spun out of control. The last thing he heard was the screech of tires and the crunch of metal. At St. Luke's Hospital, Sarah Miller was starting her evening shift. As a cleaning lady, she was used to seeing all kinds of drama unfold in these halls, but nothing prepared her for the chaos that erupted when they brought in the unconscious billionaire who was supposed to get married in 2 days. "Get him to ICU!" doctors shouted as they rushed past her. Hours later, when things had quieted down, Sarah stood in the doorway of room 507. The mighty Ethan Thompson lay still and silent, machines beeping around him. She watched as his glamorous fiancée came and went, more interested in posing for the photographers outside than sitting with him. "Don't worry," Sarah whispered as she cleaned his room that night. "Someone will stay here with you, even if it's just the cleaning lady." She had no way of knowing that those simple words would change both their lives forever, or that sometimes the greatest love stories begin in the most unlikely places. The perfect life Ethan Thompson had built was about to crumble. But from those ruins, something far more precious would grow. Something real. The news of Ethan Thompson's accident spread through New York like wildfire. At St. Luke's Hospital, the press camped outside day and night, hoping to catch a glimpse of the billionaire's famous visitors. Olivia Rothschild made sure to arrive during peak hours when the most photographers were present. "Oh, darling," she would cry dramatically, touching up her lipstick before entering his room. "What will become of our wedding?" But Sarah Miller, who cleaned the ICU rooms every night, saw a different story unfold. She watched how Olivia spent more time posing for photos than sitting with Ethan, how she never touched him, except when cameras were clicking. "Your brother was here again today," Sarah told the unconscious Ethan one night as she mopped the floor. "He was with some man I've never seen before. They were talking about company shares." The man had been Michael Davis, Ethan's biggest business rival. What Sarah didn't know was that Alexander Thompson was secretly plotting to take control of his brother's company. Just sign here, Alexander told the board members. It's temporary until Ethan recovers. Someone needs to run things. But in private meetings with Michael Davis, Alexander's true plans came out. Once I have full control, he promised, we can merge the companies. Ethan will wake up to find he's lost everything. Back at the hospital, Sarah started spending more time in room 507. During her breaks, she would read to Ethan from books she borrowed from the library. My grandmother always said people in comas can hear, she told him, so I thought you might like some company. One day, she overheard Olivia arguing on her phone in the hallway. I can't keep this up much longer, she was saying. The press is starting to ask questions about the wedding. No, I don't care about his condition. I care about my image. Sarah's heart broke for Ethan. That night, as she read to him from The Little Prince, she spoke softly. You know, Mr. Thompson, sometimes the people closest to us wear masks. It's the strangers who show us their true faces. Days turned into weeks. Sarah noticed how the flow of visitors slowed. Even Olivia's camera-ready appearances became less frequent. I have a charity gala, she would explain to the nurses. I'm sure Ethan would want me to maintain our social obligations. But Sarah remained constant. Every night she would clean his room and talk to him. She told him about her life, how she was putting herself through nursing school, how she took this job to help pay for her mother's medical bills. I know you probably can't hear me, she said one night, but everyone needs someone to talk to, even if they're sleeping. What she didn't notice was how Ethan's finger would sometimes twitch when she spoke, how his heart rate would steady when she read to him. Meanwhile, Alexander's plan was working perfectly. He had already transferred majority control of several key subsidiaries to his name. The merger with Michael Davis's company was nearly complete. Soon, he told Davis over expensive whiskey, my little brother's empire will be ours to split. But he didn't count on Carmen, an old secretary who had worked for the Thompson family for 20 years. She had seen the suspicious paperwork and started making copies. Something's not right, she told Sarah one day visiting Ethan. The company's being stripped apart, piece by piece. Sarah felt helpless. What can I do? I'm just a cleaning lady. Sometimes, Carmen said wisely, being invisible means you see everything. That night, Sarah made a decision. As she cleaned Ethan's room, she began telling him everything. About his brother's visits, about Olivia's true nature, about Carmen's suspicions. I know it's not my place, she said, holding his hand, but you need to know the truth. You need to wake up before it's too late. And then something happened that changed everything. As she turned to leave, she felt it, the slightest squeeze of her hand. Sarah froze. Mr. Thompson. His eyelids fluttered. She ran to get the nurse, her heart pounding. As the medical team rushed in, she stood in the doorway, watching as Ethan Thompson began his journey back to consciousness. But the world he would wake up to was very different from the one he left behind. And the woman who would help him piece it all back together wasn't his glamorous fiancée. It was the quiet cleaning lady who had kept him company through the darkness. The masks were about to come off, and nothing would ever be the same. The doctors called it a miracle. After 2 months in a coma, Ethan Thompson opened his eyes to a world he barely recognized. The first face he saw wasn't Olivia's, but Sarah's, as she quietly cleaned his room during the night shift. Water, he whispered, his voice hoarse from disuse. Sarah jumped, startled to hear him speak. She quickly helped him sip water through a straw. I'll get the doctor, she said, turning to leave. Wait, Ethan called weakly. Your voice. I know your voice. Sarah froze. You could hear me. Pieces, stories, The Little Prince. His eyes struggled to focus on her face. You were here every night. Before Sarah could respond, the room filled with medical staff. She slipped out quietly, her heart racing. In the hallway, she pulled out her phone to call Carmen. He's awake, she said. We need to move fast. Within hours, the hospital was swarming with reporters. Alexander Thompson arrived first, his face a mask of brotherly concern. Thank God you're alive, and he said, gripping Ethan's hand too tightly. Don't worry about anything. I've been taking care of business. Olivia burst in next, perfectly made up despite the early hour. Darling, she cried, camera flashes following her through the door. I've been absolutely lost without you. But Ethan's eyes kept drifting to the doorway, searching for the cleaning lady with the familiar voice. Where's Sarah? He asked during a quiet moment. Who? Olivia frowned. The cleaning lady. She was here every night. Olivia laughed. Darling, you must be confused. Why would a cleaning lady matter? But Ethan wasn't confused. During his coma, Sarah's voice had been his anchor. He remembered her words, her stories, her warnings about his brother and Olivia. That night, after visitors had gone, Sarah returned to clean his room. "They're saying you'll make a full recovery," she said, keeping her distance. "Tell me everything," Ethan said. "Everything you saw while I was asleep." So Sarah told him about Alexander's secret meetings with Michael Davis, about Olivia's phone calls and camera-ready visits, about Carmen's discovery of suspicious documents. "Your brother has been transferring company assets," she explained. "Carmen's been gathering proof." Ethan's face hardened. "And Olivia? Sarah hesitated. "She was more interested in photo opportunities than visiting you." "I'm sorry." Ethan closed his eyes, pain crossing his face. "Don't be sorry. While everyone else was wearing masks, you were the only one telling me the truth." The next day, Ethan asked to see his lawyer. Though still weak, his mind was sharp. "I want a complete audit of all company transactions made during my coma," he ordered, "and get me every paper Alexander had signed." When Alexander visited later, Ethan pretended to be groggy and confused. "The doctors say memory loss is normal after a coma," he said innocently, watching his brother's relief. "Don't worry about anything," Alexander assured him. "Everything's under control." But that night, Ethan had Sarah smuggle Carmen into his room with copies of all the documents she'd gathered. "They thought nobody was watching," Carmen said, spreading papers across his bed. "But I've worked for your father's company for 20 years. I know every trick." The evidence was damning. Alexander had systematically transferred control of key subsidiaries, preparing for a merger that would have left Ethan with nothing. "Your brother's meeting Davis tomorrow night at the Morgan Hotel," Sarah added. Carmen overheard them planning to finalize the deal. Ethan reached for Sarah's hand. "Why are you helping me?" "Because," she said simply, "during those 2 months, I got to know the real you, not the billionaire, not the CEO, just you." Their eyes met, and something electric passed between them. But before either could speak, Olivia burst into the room. "What is this?" she demanded, staring at their joined hands. "Why are you holding hands with the cleaning lady?" Sarah quickly stepped back, but Ethan held firm. "She's the one who exposed your lies, Olivia. All those times you came here for photos while plotting with my brother." Olivia's perfectly made-up face crumpled. "You don't understand. Alexander promised me a share of everything once he took control. We were going to be together." The truth hit Ethan like a physical blow. His fiancée and his brother, the two people he had trusted most. "Get out," he said quietly. "Get out before I call security." After Olivia fled in tears, Sarah started to leave too. "I should go." "Stay," Ethan said. "Please, I need someone I can trust." As Sarah sat down beside his bed, neither of them knew they were about to embark on the fight of their lives. Alexander wouldn't give up easily, and somewhere in the city, Michael Davis was preparing to steal everything Ethan had built. But for the first time since waking up, Ethan felt strong, because now he knew who his real allies were. And sometimes, the most powerful weapon isn't money or influence, it's having someone who believes in the truth. The Morgan Hotel's expensive restaurant buzzed with quiet conversation as Alexander Thompson and Michael Davis sat in a private booth, champagne glasses raised in celebration. "By this time tomorrow," Alexander smirked, "Thompson Technologies will be ours. My little brother won't know what hit him." But at that exact moment, Ethan Thompson was far from helpless. In his hospital room, he had assembled an unlikely team. Carmen with her stack of evidence, Sarah with her detailed observations, and James Morton, his most trusted lawyer. "Your brother got sloppy," James said, reviewing the documents. "He didn't think anyone was paying attention, but these transfers won't hold up in court." "I don't want to wait for court," Ethan replied, his voice stronger now. "I want to stop them tonight." Sarah, who had just finished her shift, spoke up from her chair beside his bed. "The meeting at the Morgan Hotel. If we catch them in the act?" "Exactly." Ethan tried to sit up straighter, wincing. "But I'm still too weak to go myself." "Maybe you don't have to," Carmen said thoughtfully. "Sometimes the best moves are the ones nobody sees coming." An hour later, Sarah walked into the Morgan Hotel wearing a borrowed waitress uniform. Carmen had called in a favor with her cousin who worked there. In her apron pocket, Sarah carried a tiny recorder. "Remember," Ethan had told her, squeezing her hand, "you don't have to do this." "I want to," she had replied. "They need to pay for what they did to you." Now, as she approached Alexander's table with a fresh bottle of champagne, her heart pounded. She could hear them clearly as she pretended to struggle with the cork. "Once these papers are signed," Davis was saying, "we'll have controlling interest. Ethan will be nothing but a figurehead." poor little brother, Alexander laughed, still lying in that hospital bed, trusting his big brother to take care of everything. Sarah's hands shook with anger as she finally popped the cork. As she poured, she deliberately spilled some on Alexander's sleeve. "You idiot," he snapped. "This suit costs more than you make in a year." "I'm so sorry, sir," Sarah apologized, dabbing at his jacket while making sure the recorder caught every word. "Let me get you something to clean that." Back in the hospital, Ethan was on the phone with the board members. One by one, he called each of them, planting seeds of doubt about Alexander's actions. "Check the transfer records," he told them. "Ask questions. Look closely at where the money's really going." Olivia chose that moment to slink into his room. She had traded her usual designer dress for a simple black outfit, her face free of makeup. "I can explain everything," she began. "Can you?" Ethan's voice was ice cold. "Can you explain why my fiancé was plotting with my brother to steal my company?" "I never meant to fall in love with him," Olivia whispered. "It just happened. And then he promised me everything. The money, the status, the power. Get out!" Ethan's words cut like a knife. "You and my brother deserve each other." As Olivia fled crying, Sarah returned with the recording. Her hands trembled as she played it back. Alexander and Davis's voices filled the room, laying out their entire scheme. "Send copies to every board member," Ethan ordered James. "I want them to hear exactly what kind of man they've been trusting." But Alexander had one last card to play. Storming into Ethan's hospital room the next morning, he waved a stack of papers. "Sign these," he demanded. "Sign over your voting rights, or I'll make sure everyone knows about your little romance with the cleaning lady." Sarah, who had been changing Ethan's water pitcher, froze. "You'd really stoop that low?" Ethan asked quietly. "The press would love it," Alexander sneered. "Billionaire loses his mind after coma, falls for lowly cleaning woman. Your reputation would be ruined." Ethan looked at Sarah, then back at his brother. "You know what, Alexander? Go ahead. Tell everyone. Because I'd rather lose my reputation than lose my soul like you have." Alexander's face turned purple with rage. He grabbed Sarah's arm roughly. "This is your fault, you gold-digging little..." But he never finished the sentence, because Ethan Thompson, still weak from his coma, somehow found the strength to get out of bed and punch his brother square in the jaw. As Alexander sprawled on the floor, security guards rushed in. Behind them came James Morton, holding the recorded evidence from the hotel. "Mr. Thompson," one of the guards said to Alexander, "you'll have to come with us. The board would like to speak with you immediately." As they led Alexander away, Sarah helped Ethan back to bed. His hands were shaking from the effort, but his eyes were clear. "I meant what I said," he told her softly. "I don't care what anyone thinks. You're the only real thing in my life right now." Sarah looked down at their joined hands, his expensive manicured ones and her work-roughened ones. "What happens now?" "Now?" Ethan smiled. "Now we fight back, together." Outside the hospital windows, the sun was rising over New York City. A new day was beginning, one that would change everything for the cleaning lady who dared to care, and the billionaire who learned that true wealth isn't counted in dollars. But Alexander Thompson wasn't finished yet. And somewhere in the city, wheels were already turning that would test their newfound bond in ways they could never imagine. Alexander Thompson sat in his luxury apartment, nursing both his bruised jaw and his wounded pride. His phone buzzed with another message from the board of directors, his third official warning, but he wasn't reading them anymore. Instead, his eyes were fixed on an old photograph of his father. "You always liked Ethan better," he muttered, pouring another drink. "Well, watch what happens next." Across town, Ethan was finally being released from the hospital. Sarah helped him pack the few belongings he'd accumulated during his stay, including all the books she'd read to him. "You don't have to keep those," she said, embarrassed by their worn library covers. "They're important to me," Ethan replied softly. "They remind me of who was really there when I needed someone." But their quiet moment was interrupted by a wave of reporters outside the hospital entrance. Headlines about the Thompson family scandal had exploded across every newspaper and gossip site. "Thompson heir awakens to betrayal. Billionaire's brother caught in takeover scheme. Society bride leaves coma victim for his brother." And now, a new headline was gaining traction. "Billionaire and the cleaning lady. A hospital romance? Don't look at them," Ethan said, noticing Sarah's discomfort as cameras flashed. "They don't matter, but other things did matter." Like the anonymous letter Sarah found in her locker that morning. Gold diggers get what they deserve, or the way some of the other hospital staff had started whispering behind her back. Even her supervisor had called her in for a friendly chat, about maintaining professional boundaries with patients. "Maybe I should quit," Sarah told Carmen during their lunch break. "Find another hospital." "That's exactly what they want," Carmen replied firmly. "Since when do you run from bullies?" Meanwhile, Ethan faced his own battles. His first day back at the office was a minefield of fake smiles and hidden agendas. Not everyone was happy about Alexander's removal from the board. "Your brother had some good ideas about modernizing," one board member commented. "Perhaps you're being too hasty." "My brother had ideas about stealing," Ethan corrected coldly. Anyone who supported him might want to reconsider their position, but Alexander wasn't done plotting. In a dark bar downtown, he met with a private investigator. "I want everything on her," he ordered, sliding Sarah's photo across the table. "Every secret, every weakness, everyone she loves." The investigator nodded. "What about the other matter?" Alexander's smile was cruel. "Yes. Make sure those financial records are exactly where the SEC will find them. My brother's going to learn what it feels like to lose everything." Back at his penthouse, Ethan was going through years of company records with James Morton. The lawyer's face was grim. "Alexander didn't just attack the company," James explained. "He planted something much worse: false records, modified documents. If the SEC finds them, I could go to prison," Ethan finished quietly. Sarah arrived after her shift to find him surrounded by papers, his face drawn with worry. Without a word, she started making coffee, falling into the comfortable routine they'd developed in the hospital. "You don't have to stay," Ethan said. "This could get ugly." Sarah set his coffee down. "Do you remember what you read in The Little Prince? About what makes something special? It's the time you spent on it," Ethan quoted softly. "I've spent too much time caring about you to walk away now," she said simply. But life had other plans. That night, Sarah received an urgent call from her mother's nursing home. The monthly payment had bounced. All her accounts were suddenly frozen. When she called the bank in a panic, the explanation was cold and clear. "There's an investigation into suspicious deposits, possible involvement in financial fraud." Sarah felt sick. Alexander was attacking her too, making it look like she'd been paid to spy on Ethan. Across town, Olivia was giving an exclusive interview. "I tried to warn everyone about that cleaning woman," she said, dabbing her eyes, "the way she manipulated poor Ethan while he was vulnerable." And in his office, Alexander raised a toast to his computer screen, watching as his plans unfolded. He'd learned from his mistakes. This time, he would destroy his brother not by attacking his money, but by attacking his heart. But he didn't count on one thing: the security camera footage Carmen had secretly recorded of him planting the false documents, or the fact that Sarah, despite her frozen accounts and ruined reputation, wasn't going anywhere. That night, as rain pounded against the penthouse windows, Sarah and Ethan sat together on his couch, both battle-worn but undefeated. "We could run," Sarah suggested, half joking. "Move to a small town, change our names." Ethan took her hand. "I've spent my whole life running from real feelings, hiding behind money and status. Not anymore. So what do? We fight. But first," he pulled her closer, "there's something I've wanted to do since I first opened my eyes and saw you in that hospital room." As their lips met for the first time, neither of them saw Carmen's urgent text messages or the breaking news alert about a shocking discovery in the Thompson Company archives. The storm was far from over, but at least now they had something worth fighting for. Carmen's urgent text messages finally got through at midnight. "Turn on the news now." Ethan and Sarah broke from their kiss to find every channel running the same shocking story. Old photographs filled the screen, pictures of Ethan and Alexander's father with another family. Sources confirmed that the late Richard Thompson had a secret second family, the reporter announced, including another son who may have legal claim to the Thompson fortune. Ethan sat frozen, his world tilting for the second time in as many months. That's impossible, but the evidence was right there on the screen. Documents, photos, and a man who looked startlingly like his father, Marcus Rivera, age 40, a construction worker from Queens. "Did you know?" Ethan asked Carmen when she arrived at the penthouse, still in her pajamas. "I found the files tonight," she explained, "hidden in your father's old office, but Alexander got to the press first." Sarah watched the pain cross Ethan's face. "Why would your brother expose this now?" "Because," Ethan said grimly, "if this Marcus person has a legitimate claim, it could freeze all company assets during a legal battle. Everything would grind to a halt, including the investigation into Alexander's false documents," James Morton added, arriving with a stack of legal papers. He's buying time. But Alexander had underestimated his brother again. Instead of hiding from the scandal, Ethan did something unexpected. He went to Queens. "You don't have to come," he told Sarah as they drove through the pre-dawn streets. "I know," she replied simply. "I want to." They found Marcus Rivera's apartment building just as he was leaving for work. The resemblance to Richard Thompson was striking. "I wondered when one of you would show up," Marcus said, unsurprised, "though I figured it'd be the brother who's been calling me all week." "Alexander contacted you?" Ethan asked. "Offered me $5 million to claim my rightful inheritance publicly," Marcus snorted. "Didn't mention he was really using me to mess with you." Inside Marcus's modest apartment, over coffee and chipped mugs, the truth came out. Yes, Richard Thompson had another family. Yes, Marcus was his son. But "I've known since I was 18, Marcus explained. "Your father came clean, set up a trust fund for me. I never wanted his money or his name. I had my own life, my own family." "Then why come forward now?" "Because your brother found my daughter." Marcus's face hardened. "She's sick, needs expensive treatments. Alexander promised to ruin her chances of getting care if I didn't play along." Sarah, who had been quiet, suddenly spoke up. "Like he froze my bank accounts and threatened my mother's nursing home care." Understanding dawned on Ethan's face. He's using the people we love against us. But Alexander's plan was about to backfire spectacularly, because now Ethan had proof of blackmail to add to Carmen's security footage. Back at the penthouse, an emergency board meeting was called. This time every member attended, including some faces Ethan hadn't seen in years. "Before we begin," Ethan announced, "I'd like you to meet someone." Marcus Rivera walked in, followed by Sarah and Carmen. On the screen behind them played Alexander's blackmail attempts, caught on Carmen's careful recordings. "My brother thinks family is a weakness," Ethan continued, "something to exploit. But real family, blood or chosen, is our greatest strength." One by one, the truth came out. Alexander's schemes, the falsified SEC documents, the attacks on Sarah and Marcus's families. "I move for an immediate vote," the senior board member declared, "to remove Alexander Thompson from all company positions and freeze his assets pending criminal investigation." The vote was unanimous, but in his apartment across town, Alexander watched the news coverage with a strange smile. He pulled out his phone and dialed. "It's time," he said to the person on the other end. "Release everything we have on the cleaning lady and make that call to the nursing home." Sarah's phone rang minutes later. Her mother had fallen, the nurse said. It was serious. As she and Ethan rushed to the hospital, neither noticed the man following their car, or the fact that every traffic light they hit turned red, delaying them just long enough. Because while they were racing across town, something was happening at Thompson Technologies, something that would make the secret family scandal look like small news. And in a private airport hangar, Michael Davis boarded his private jet, carrying a USB drive with enough data to destroy not just the company, but everyone Ethan loved. The real war was just beginning, and this time the casualties wouldn't be measured in dollars and cents, but in the lives of innocent people caught in the crossfire. As Sarah held Ethan's hand during the drive, she remembered something her mother once told her. "Love is like a lighthouse in a storm. The bigger the waves, the brighter it shines." They were about to find out just how bright their light could be, and whether it would be enough to guide them through the darkness ahead. The emergency room at Queens General Hospital was chaos when Sarah and Ethan arrived. They found Sarah's mother, Rose Miller, already in surgery for a broken hip. "She was fine this morning," Sarah insisted to the nurse. "How could she fall?" But deep down she knew. This had Alexander written all over it. Ethan's phone buzzed constantly, urgent messages from the office he was ignoring to stay with Sarah. Finally, James Morton's call couldn't be put off any longer. "The entire system is down," James reported. "Every computer in the building went dark 10 minutes ago, and there's more." Sarah watched Ethan's face grow pale as he listened. When he hung up, his hands were shaking. "Alexander didn't just attack the company computers," he explained. "He found something in my father's old files. Something that could destroy everything. What could be worse than a secret family? A secret deal." Ethan ran his hands through his hair. 20 years ago, my father supposedly stole the core technology that built Thompson Technologies. If that proof gets out, all those jobs," Sarah whispered, "all those people depending on the company." The nurse interrupted with news about Rose. The surgery was successful, but something was wrong with her medical records. Her insurance was suddenly showing as expired. That's impossible, Sarah protested. I just paid, but she hadn't. She couldn't. Not with her accounts frozen. I'll handle it, Ethan said immediately, pulling out his wallet. No, Sarah stopped him. Alexander's trying to make me look like I'm using you for money. I won't give him that satisfaction. Then what do we do? A new voice answered from the doorway. We fight back, together. It was Marcus Rivera, still in his construction uniform. Behind him stood Carmen, carrying a stack of folders. Those files Alexander found, Carmen said. There's something he missed. Meanwhile, across town, Alexander Thompson was celebrating his victory with Michael Davis in a private club. A toast, Davis raised his glass, to the fall of the mighty Ethan Thompson, but Alexander's smile faded when his phone buzzed with a message. A video link. When he clicked it, his blood ran cold. There was his father, Richard Thompson, 20 years younger, sitting at his desk and recording a message. If you're watching this, the recorded Richard said, then someone has found the false evidence I planted about stealing technology. A safeguard, in case either of my sons ever tried to use the company for their own greed rather than the good of others. Alexander slammed his phone down, but not before Davis saw. What was that? Nothing, Alexander snapped, but his hands shook as he texted his contact at the nursing home. Is it done? The reply was not what he expected. Police here asking questions about suspicious activity. Because while Alexander had been focused on Sarah's mother, he'd forgotten about the network of people Sarah had helped during her years at the hospital, like Officer Mike Chen, whose mother she'd cared for in the ICU. Officer Chen, who now had a very interesting security tape showing a man tampering with Rose Miller's walker just before her fall. Back at Queen's General, Sarah's phone lit up with messages of support. Hospital staff she'd worked with for years, patients she'd helped, families who remembered her kindness, all offering help with her mother's care. I don't understand, she told Ethan, after everything Alexander did to ruin my reputation. He doesn't understand that real power isn't about money or control, Ethan replied. It's about the lives you touch. Carmen burst in with breaking news on her tablet. The stolen technology story was being ripped apart by tech journalists who'd found Richard Thompson's old patents. The truth was coming out, but Alexander had one last card to play. In his private safe, he had something even his father hadn't known about. Something that would force Ethan to choose between saving the company and saving Sarah. At Thompson Technologies, the computers suddenly came back online, but instead of the usual screens, every monitor showed the same image, young Sarah Miller in a police station being fingerprinted. 10 years ago, Alexander's voice came through the speakers. Our little cleaning lady was arrested. Would you like to know why, brother? Ethan looked at Sarah, whose face had gone white. He found it, she whispered. The one thing I never told you. The reason I had to take care of my mother. The reason I became a cleaning lady instead of finishing nursing school. Outside the hospital room, thunder cracked across the sky. A storm was breaking over New York City, but the real tempest was just beginning, because Sarah's secret wasn't what Alexander thought it was. And when the truth came out, it wouldn't just change her relationship with Ethan, it would shake the very foundation of the Thompson family itself. As rain lashed against the windows, Sarah took a deep breath. It was time to tell the story she'd kept hidden for 10 years, a story that began with another hospital, another wealthy family, and a choice that had haunted her ever since. Your father, she said quietly to Ethan. I met him once. The night everything changed. Lightning flashed, illuminating tears in her eyes. The past was about to collide with the present, and nothing would ever be the same. Sarah's hands trembled as she pulled an old locket from beneath her uniform. Inside was a faded photograph of a younger Richard Thompson standing next to a nurse, Sarah's mother, Rose, 20 years ago. My mother was a nurse at Mount Sinai, Sarah began. Your father was her patient after his first heart attack, the one nobody knew about. Ethan sat down heavily. Father never had a heart attack. He kept it secret, said it would hurt the company if people thought he was weak. Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. He was there for 2 weeks. My mother took care of him. They became close. Understanding dawned on Marcus Rivera's face. Like my mother. No, Sarah shook her head. Nothing happened, but he saw how hard my mother worked, how she was struggling to pay for nursing school for me. He set up a private account to help us. Carmen pulled out an old file. That's why I recognized your name. There were payments to a Rose Miller for years. But the arrest, Ethan pressed gently. Alexander said, 10 years ago your father had another heart attack. A bad one. He managed to call my mother. She was the only one who knew about his condition. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. She got him to the hospital in time, but the doctors said he needed emergency surgery. They needed next of kin to sign the papers. But Alexander and I were out of the country, Ethan remembered. A business trip to Tokyo. Mother forged Alexander's signature on the consent forms. She knew every minute counted. Sarah's voice broke. She saved your father's life, but when Alexander found out, he had her arrested, Ethan finished, fury building in his voice. For forgery. Your father tried to stop it, but he was too weak after surgery. By the time he recovered, the damage was done. Mother lost her nursing license. I had to drop out of nursing school to support us. Sarah wiped her eyes. That's why I became a cleaning lady. But why didn't father fix it afterward? He tried. He set up a trust fund for us, made sure we were taken care of, but 3 days before he was going to reinstate mother's license. Sarah couldn't finish. He died, Carmen said softly, and Alexander made sure all records of his promises disappeared. Suddenly, slow clapping filled the hospital room. Alexander stood in the doorway, his face twisted in a sneer. What a touching story, he said. The noble cleaning lady who sacrificed everything. But you forgot one detail, didn't you, Sarah? About what else happened that night? Sarah went pale. Don't. The night our father had his second heart attack, Alexander continued cruelly, he changed his will. I found the draft in his papers. He was going to leave controlling interest in the company to a foundation run by Rose Miller's daughter. The room went silent. Ethan stared at Sarah in shock. That's why you got close to my brother, isn't it? Alexander pressed. Trying to claim what you think is yours? No. Sarah stood up, shaking. I never knew about the will. I took care of Ethan because he needed someone. Because I... She stopped, looking at Ethan's stunned face. Because you... what? Alexander mocked. Love him, please. You're just like everyone else, trying to get a piece of the Thompson fortune. That's enough. The new voice came from the doorway. Everyone turned to see an elderly man in an expensive suit. Judge William Harrison, head of the Thompson Company Board. I got your message, Carmen, he said, holding up a phone, and I think it's time everyone knew the truth about that night. Alexander's smirk faltered. What are you talking about? I was there, the judge said quietly. I was the one who drove Richard to the hospital when he called Rose. I was his best friend and I knew all his secrets. He turned to Ethan, including why he really wanted Sarah to run the foundation. From his briefcase, Judge Harrison pulled out a sealed envelope. Your father gave me this to be opened only if his children ever turned against each other. I'd say that time has come. With trembling hands, Ethan opened the letter and began to read his father's last words. My dear sons, if you're reading this, then my worst fear has come true. You've let greed and power turn you against each other. I tried to teach you that a company is more than profits. It's about the lives we touch. Sarah Miller understood that even as a young girl visiting her mother at the hospital. She showed me kindness without knowing who I was. That's why I wanted her to guide the company's future, not because of who she was, but because of who she is. Ethan looked up at Sarah, seeing her through new eyes. All those nights she spent reading to him in the hospital, caring for him without wanting anything in return. She was living his father's legacy without even knowing it. This is ridiculous, Alexander sputtered. You can't seriously believe, but he was interrupted by a commotion in the hallway. Police officers were leading away the man who had tampered with Rose's walker, and he was talking. Mr. Thompson paid me, he was saying. Him and Mr. Davis. They wanted to hurt the old lady to get to her daughter. Alexander backed away, but security guards blocked his exit. His phone buzzed. Michael Davis was being arrested at the airport. Everything was unraveling, but for Sarah and Ethan, things were finally becoming clear. I never wanted the company, Sarah said softly. I just wanted to help people, like my mother taught me, like your father believed I could. Ethan took her hand, understanding at last why he had felt so drawn to her from the beginning. In a world of masks and lies, she had been real, but Alexander wasn't finished, and what he would do next would make all his previous schemes look like child's play, because he hadn't just found Richard Thompson's old will, he'd found something else. Something that would force everyone to choose between justice and mercy, between love and duty, and this time there would be no going back. Alexander Thompson stood cornered in the hospital room, but the smile never left his face. With deliberate slowness, he pulled a USB drive from his pocket. You know what's on this? He asked, dangling it like bait. Every dirty deal father ever made, every bribe, every cover-up, every skeleton in the family closet, including some things about mother that would break poor Ethan's heart. Ethan stepped forward. You're lying. Am I? Alexander's eyes glittered. Did you ever wonder why Mother really left? Why she abandoned her precious sons? Father didn't just have affairs, little brother. He had a whole secret life, and Mother discovered something so terrible about his business dealings that she couldn't live with herself. Sarah felt Ethan's hand tighten in hers. She knew how much he had idolized his mother, who had disappeared when he was 12. Here's my offer, Alexander continued. Let me walk away, with a generous settlement, of course, and all these secrets stay buried. Try to prosecute me, and I release everything. The Thompson name will be ruined forever. Judge Harrison stepped forward. You'd destroy your own family's legacy? Family? Alexander laughed bitterly. Look around this room. A cleaning lady, a secret half-brother, an old judge who helped father hide his lies, some legacy. But he had miscalculated, because at that moment, Rose Miller opened her eyes in the hospital bed. Sarah, she called weakly. Is that Richard's boy? Everyone turned. Rose was looking straight at Alexander with a gentle smile. I remember when you were small, she said softly. You used to visit the hospital with your father. Such a sad little boy, always trying to get his attention. Alexander's composure cracked. Shut up. You don't know anything about me. You would draw pictures for the sick children, Rose continued. Your father was so proud. He kept everyone. He did not. Alexander's voice rose. He never cared about anything I did. Second drawer of his desk, Judge Harrison said quietly. Behind the false back. Every drawing, every school report, every newspaper clipping about you. He called it his Alexander box. The USB drive trembled in Alexander's hand. You're lying. He always loved Ethan best. No, came a new voice. Carmen walked in holding an old leather journal. Your father's private diary. Listen to this. Alexander tries so hard to prove himself, to be what he thinks I want. If only he could see that I'm proud of him just as he is. Tears filled Alexander's eyes. Then why did he trust everyone else with his secrets? Why not me? Because you were too much like him, Rose said gently. So afraid of showing weakness, of letting people in. He wanted better for you. Alexander's legs gave out. He sank into a chair, the USB drive falling from his limp fingers. Sarah picked it up, but instead of giving it to Ethan or the police, she held it out to Alexander. Your father's secrets died with him, she said softly. These are yours now. To keep or destroy, your choice. Alexander stared at her, then at his brother. Why would you trust me with this? Because, Ethan said, you're still my brother. And father was right. There are more important things than money or power. Slowly, Alexander took the drive. With shaking hands, he snapped it in half. I'm sorry, he whispered, for everything. But the moment was interrupted by urgent shouts from the hallway. Michael Davis had escaped custody, and he had taken something from his office before the police arrived. Proof of an even bigger scandal, one that could destroy not just the Thompsons, but hundreds of innocent families. He's heading to the press, an officer reported. If those documents get out, Ethan and Alexander looked at each other, years of rivalry falling away in the face of a common enemy. The old tunnel entrance, Alexander said, from when the building was a newspaper office. Davis doesn't know about it. Ethan nodded. We can cut him off before he reaches the media center. I'm coming too. Marcus stepped forward. That's what family does. As the three brothers rushed out, Sarah felt a change in the air. The storm that had battered their lives was finally breaking, but in its wake, something new was growing, something stronger than secrets or lies or old wounds. Rose reached for her daughter's hand. Your father would be proud, she said softly. Richard always said love was the best investment. Sarah watched through the window as Ethan, Alexander, and Marcus drove away together. But will it be enough? Because Michael Davis wasn't just running with documents, he was running with a truth so explosive it could tear apart not just the Thompson family but the entire city, and time was running out. Rain pounded the streets of New York as three cars raced through the night. In the first, Ethan gripped the steering wheel, his mind racing faster than the car. In the second, Alexander navigated the back streets he'd learned during years of secret dealings. And in the third, Marcus drove with the skill of someone who'd worked these streets his whole life. Their target, Michael Davis, speeding toward the media center with documents that could destroy everything. He's turning onto Broadway, Alexander's voice crackled through their phones. The tunnel entrance is 2 blocks ahead. But Davis wasn't alone. A sleek black car pulled up beside him, Olivia Rothschild, making one last grab for power and revenge. Back at the hospital, Sarah paced nervously. Carmen burst in with her tablet showing traffic cameras. "They've got him trapped," she reported. "But Olivia's there too." Rose reached for her daughter's hand. "Go," she said softly. "They need you." Sarah hesitated. "Mom, I've spent my life helping others find their way." Rose smiled. "Now it's your turn." Across town, Davis and Olivia reached the media center's underground parking garage, but as they rushed toward the elevator, they found their path blocked. "It's over, Michael," Ethan said, stepping out of the shadows. Alexander and Marcus flanked him. Davis laughed. "3 brothers united. How touching, but too late." He held up a folder. "One call to my contact upstairs, and every dirty secret your father buried comes out, including the real reason he started Thompson Technologies." "We know about the stolen technology," Alexander said. "Stolen?" Davis's laugh turned cruel. "Oh no, much worse. Your father built his company on blood money, drug money, mob connections, all laundered through that first tech startup." Ethan felt the world spin. "You're lying." "Am I? Ask your brother. Ask Judge Harrison. They all knew." "Why do you think your mother really left?" Olivia stepped forward, her designer heels clicking on concrete. "Just give us what we want, Ethan. A fair share of the company, or everything burns." But another voice rang out. "No more lies." Everyone turned. Sarah stood there holding an old leather journal, Richard Thompson's real diary. "Carmen found this in your office, Michael. Behind the wall safe." Her voice was steady. "You've been blackmailing the Thompson family for years, but you never read the last entry." She opened the journal and began to read. "Today I finally have the proof to end Davis's hold on us. The blood money was his all along, laundered through shell companies. He's been threatening to expose his own crimes, letting my family take the blame. But no more. Mary, my love, if you ever read this, I didn't run that startup with mob money. I was working with the FBI to expose Davis's operation. That's why you had to leave, to stay safe until we could prove everything." Ethan stared at the journal. "Mother was protected?" "In witness protection," Sarah nodded. "Carmen found her, Ethan. She's alive, safe, waiting to come home." Davis lunged for the journal, but Marcus caught him. Olivia tried to run, but Alexander blocked her path. "You know what I learned from being a construction worker," Marcus said, holding Davis down. "Sometimes you have to tear everything down to build something stronger." Police sirens wailed outside. Officer Chen led a team into the garage. "Michael Davis," he announced, "you're under arrest for extortion, blackmail, and conspiracy. Ms. Rothschild, you'll be joining him." As they led Davis and Olivia away, Ethan turned to Sarah. "How did you know to look behind the safe?" "Because your father left a clue," she smiled. "In the story he used to tell my mother about a girl who found a garden behind a wall. I remembered you mentioning the same story last week." Alexander stepped forward, his face heavy with shame. "All these years I thought father was corrupt. That's why I became so bitter, so hungry for power, to prove I could do better. He was protecting all of us," Ethan realized, "even when we didn't know it." Rain still fell outside, but softer now, cleansing, new. 3 months later, the Thompson Technologies building gleamed in the spring sunshine. Inside, changes were everywhere. Alexander headed the new security division, using his knowledge of corporate darkness to bring light. Marcus ran the Thompson Foundation, helping families in need, starting with his daughter's medical care. And in the CEO's office, Ethan sat with Sarah, planning their wedding. A simple ceremony in the hospital garden where they first met. Rose would walk her daughter down the aisle, and in the front row, Mary Thompson would finally see her sons united. "You know what I realized," Ethan said, holding Sarah close. "All those years running a tech company, I never understood my father's greatest innovation." "What was that?" "Understanding that real power isn't in computers or money or secrets. It's in here." He touched his heart. "In love, in family, in trust." Sarah smiled. "Your father knew something else too." "What?" "That sometimes the greatest love stories don't start with a prince and a princess. Sometimes they start with a billionaire and a cleaning lady who were brave enough to see past the surface to what really matters." Outside the window, New York City sparkled with possibility. In the Thompson Technologies lobby, a new plaque hung beside Richard Thompson's portrait. "Success isn't measured in dollars, but in lives touched and hearts changed." And in the hospital where it all began, a garden bloomed where there used to be just concrete, a place where people from all walks of life could find healing, hope, and maybe even love. Because in the end, that's what the Thompson legacy became. Not a story of power or wealth or revenge, but a reminder that true love sees past every mask, heals every wound, and builds bridges across every divide. All it takes is the courage to open your heart and let the light in. The end.